The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard when Officer Daniel Hayes noticed something wrong. It was supposed to be a quiet day. The kind of day where royal guards stand at attention, children play in protected gardens, and tourists snap photos from behind iron gates. But Daniel's hand moved to his radio. His eyes locked on a figure moving too fast, too determined. Through a service entrance that should have been locked, the man wore a maintenance uniform. But maintenance workers don't run. They don't glance over their shoulders every 3 seconds, and they definitely don't carry that look in their eyes. The one Daniel had learned to recognize in 15 years of service, Prince George was 30 meters away, laughing as he chased a football across the grass. His protection officer was turned, speaking into his own radio. The nanny was kneeling, tying the shoelace of the younger princess. For just a moment, 8-year-old Prince was exposed, and the intruder saw it too. Daniel's heart kicked into overdrive. Training took over. He didn't shout "not yet." Shouting would cause panic, and panic could make things worse. Instead, he moved fast, silent, cutting across the courtyard at an angle that would put him between the man and the child. The intruder's walk became a jog. Then a run. Now Daniel shouted, "Stop! Security!" The prince looked up, confused. The nanny gasped. The protection officer spun around, reaching for his weapon. But Daniel was already there, closing the distance with everything he had. The man didn't stop. He kept running, and now he was shouting too. "George! George, I need to talk to you." "They won't let me see you." His voice cracked with desperation. Not anger, something worse. Something unstable. Before you hear what happens next, do me a favor. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. These real emotional moments deserve to be shared. It helps me bring you more stories like this one. Daniel reached Prince George 3 seconds before the intruder did. He swept the boy behind him with one arm, placing his own body as a shield. The prince stumbled, eyes wide with fear he'd never known before. This was real. This wasn't a drill his father had mentioned at dinner. This was a stranger, wild-eyed and reaching for him. "Get back." Daniel's voice was thunder, not a request. A command that carried the weight of absolute authority. But the man didn't stop. He was too far gone. Too consumed by whatever had driven him to scale a fence, bypass security, and charge across a royal courtyard toward a child he'd never met. He reached for George's shoulder. Daniel moved. What happened in the next 5 seconds would be reviewed by Internal Affairs, discussed in security briefings, and replayed in Daniel's mind every night for months. But in that moment, there was no time to think, only time to act. And as Daniel's training collided with the intruder's desperation, with Prince George frozen in fear behind him, one question burned through everyone's mind. How did this man get so close? The answer would shock everyone. But first, they had to survive the next 60 seconds. Daniel's hand shot out and caught the intruder's wrist mid-reach. The grip was iron, unbreakable. The kind of hold you learn when protecting royalty isn't just a job. It's everything. The man's eyes went wide. Up close, Daniel could see he was younger than expected. Maybe 30, unshaven, exhausted. His maintenance uniform was authentic, which explained how he'd gotten past the first checkpoint. But the name badge was wrong. Daniel clocked it instantly. The font was off by millimeters. "Please," the man gasped, still straining forward. "Please, I just need to tell him down now." Daniel twisted the man's arm, forcing him to his knees. Behind him, he felt small hands clutching his jacket. Prince George, terrified, trembling. Other guards converged from 3 directions. The protection officer reached them, weapon drawn, face pale with the realization of how badly this had almost gone. The nanny had pulled the princess back toward the palace entrance, her phone already dialing emergency protocols, but the intruder kept talking. Even on his knees, even with 3 guards closing in, he kept shouting. "They're lying to you. About your mother. About what really happened. George, please." Daniel's blood ran cold. This wasn't just an obsessed fan. This was something worse, a conspiracy theorist, Someone who'd built an entire delusion around the royal family. Someone who genuinely believed an 8-year-old boy needed to hear his twisted version of truth. "Secure the prince," Daniel ordered, keeping his grip firm. "Get him inside. Now." The protection officer moved to take George, but the boy didn't let go of Daniel's jacket. "It's okay," Daniel said softly, glancing back. His voice completely different now. Gentle, calm. "You're safe. Go with Officer Maurice. I've got this." George's eyes met his. Wide. Young. Scared in a way no child should ever be scared. Slowly, his fingers released the fabric. Maurice scooped him up, protocol broken, but humanity winning, and carried the prince toward the palace at a run. The intruder struggled again, weaker this time. "No, wait. He needs to know." 2 guards took over restraint duty. Daniel stepped back, breathing hard, adrenaline finally catching up to him. His radio crackled with urgent voices. Lockdown protocols. Emergency response teams. The whole palace was going into high alert. But something nagged at Daniel. Something about the timing. "How did you get in?" he asked the man directly. The intruder laughed. A broken, desperate sound. "You think I'm alone? You think this was random?" Daniel's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "Check the east wing," the man said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Check it now. It could be a lie. A distraction." But Daniel had learned to trust his instincts. And every instinct screamed that this man wasn't bluffing. He keyed his radio. "All units sweep the east wing. Possible second intrusion." Repeat, "Possible second." An alarm cut through the air. Not the courtyard alarm. The palace interior alarm. Someone else was inside. The guards holding the intruder tensed. Daniel's mind raced. This was coordinated, planned. One man makes a scene in the courtyard while drawing every guard's attention. While another, "Where are the children?" Someone shouted through the radio. Daniel's heart stopped. "Morris has Prince George heading to secure room 2, came the reply. "Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis?" Static, then unknown. Last seen with Nanny Catherine near the morning room? Daniel was already running before he made the conscious choice to move. The morning room was in the east wing. The same wing the intruder had mentioned. The same wing where the alarm was now screaming. His boots pounded against ancient stone floors. Portraits of kings and queens blurred past. He'd walked these halls 1,000 times, but never like this. Never with pure terror driving every step. He rounded a corner and saw her. Nanny Catherine. On the floor. Conscious but dazed, hand pressed to her forehead, where a bruise was already forming. "Where?" Daniel demanded. She pointed down the hall with a shaking hand. He took them. Both of them. Said he had a message for the king. Daniel didn't wait for more. He ran toward the sound of crying children and the voice of a man who'd just made the worst decision of his life. The gallery hall stretched ahead like a tunnel. Sunlight poured through tall windows, making the polished floor gleam. And there, halfway down, a man stood with his back against the wall. He held Princess Charlotte's hand. Prince Louis, only 5 years old, clung to his sister. The man looked nothing like the courtyard intruder. Older, calm, almost professional. In his dark jacket and neat appearance, but his free hand rested on something in his pocket. The message was clear without words. Daniel slowed his approach. Hands visible. Voice steady. "Hey, I'm Daniel. Let's talk about this." "Stay there," the man said. Not shouting matter of fact, like he was conducting business. "I mean it. Don't come closer." Charlotte was crying silently, tears streaming down her 6-year-old face. Louis had his eyes squeezed shut, like if he couldn't see the bad man. Bad man couldn't see him. Daniel's training flooded back. Hostage negotiation module. Keep him talking. Build rapport. By time for backup, "Okay," Daniel said, stopping 15 feet away. "I'm not moving, see? What's your name?" "Doesn't matter. It matters to me. And it'll matter when this is over." The man's jaw tightened. "When this is over, I'll be in prison or dead. I know how this works. It doesn't have to work that way." Daniel kept his voice calm, conversational, like they were discussing the weather. You haven't hurt anyone? Nanny Catherine is okay? Those children are okay. You can still walk away from this. I can't. The man's composure cracked slightly. You don't understand what they did. What they're hiding? Another conspiracy theorist? But this one was colder, more dangerous. The courtyard intruder had been emotional, chaotic. This man had planned, waited, executed his role while his partner drew attention. Then help me understand, Daniel said. Tell me what this is about. The man glanced down at Charlotte. It's about truth. It's about justice for people who can't speak for themselves anymore. And it's about making sure the world knows what the royal family really is. Daniel's radio crackled softly. He could hear movement in the corridors behind him. Back up, getting into position. But any aggressive move now would put those children in immediate danger. He needed to keep this man talking. The world is watching, Daniel said. Right now, security cameras are recording this. Whatever you want to say, you'll get your chance. But not like this. Not with children. Children. The man's voice turned bitter. You think they care about children? Ask them what happened to stop. Daniel's voice hardened slightly. I don't care what you think you know. I don't care what websites you've read or what forums convinced you this was necessary. Look at their faces. The man did. For just a moment, he looked down at Charlotte and Louis. Really looked at them. They're terrified, Daniel continued. They don't understand politics, or conspiracies, or adult problems. They're just kids who want their parents. Is that who you want to hurt? Is that the person you want to be? The debriefing room was cold, sterile, nothing like the warm, historic halls of the palace above. Daniel sat across from Commander Phillips, head of royal security. Between them lay a folder thick with incident reports, security footage stills, and background checks on the two intruders. Walk me through it again, Phillips said. The moment you saw the first suspect, Daniel had already told the story 3 times. Once to the initial response team, once to internal affairs, now to Phillips. But he understood. When royal children are put in danger, every detail matters. The way he moved, Daniel said. It was wrong from the start. Too focused. The uniform was good, but the badge was fake. Different font. I noticed it when he got close. Phillips nodded, making notes. And his partner? I never saw the second man until the gallery hall. But they coordinated the timing perfectly. One draws attention outside. One moves inside while we're distracted, which means reconnaissance, Phillips said grimly. They studied our protocols, knew our blind spots. These weren't random conspiracy theorists, Officer Hayes. They had help. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Someone inside had fed them information. Daniel's stomach turned. He'd worked with these people for years. Trusted them with his life. The thought that one of them might have helped plan this. We're reviewing everyone, Phillips continued. Every guard, every staff member who had access to schedules, patrol routes, security protocols. This doesn't leave this room, but you should. No, we found evidence of communication between the courtyard suspect and a palace email account. Whose? We don't know yet. It's being traced. But Phillips leaned forward. You did good today. You put yourself between a potential threat and Prince George without hesitation. You talked down a hostage situation without a single injury. The family wants to thank you personally. Daniel shook his head. I was just doing my job. No, you went beyond your job. Most guards would have drawn their weapon in that gallery. You chose words instead. Those children are unharmed because of you. The words should have felt good. But all Daniel could think about was Charlotte's tear-stained face, Louise's closed eyes, George's small hands gripping his jacket. How are they? He asked quietly. Shaken. The palace psychologist is with them now. Prince George hasn't spoken much since the incident. Princess Charlotte keeps asking if the bad man is coming back. Phillips paused. Their children, who just learned the world isn't as safe as they thought? That's a hard lesson. Daniel knew that lesson well. He'd learned it himself at 8 years old, in a different country, under different circumstances. It was part of why he'd become a guard, To protect others from learning it too soon? The suspects, Daniel said. What's their story? Phillips flipped open the folder. 2 photographs stared up from the page. The courtyard man identified as Marcus Webb, 32, former journalist. The galleryman Andrew Pearson, 45, former palace maintenance worker, fired 6 months ago. Webb lost his job after publishing conspiracy theories about the royal family, Phillips explained. Became obsessed. Started a blog, gained followers, convinced himself he was uncovering some grand cover-up. Pearson was let go for erratic behavior and security concerns. They found each other online, fed each other's delusions, and decided to go after children to make a point. They claimed they just wanted to deliver a message. They genuinely believed the royal family needed to be exposed. Classic radicalization pattern. Starts with distrust, moves to obsession, ends with action they convince themselves is justified. Daniel had seen the pattern before. Different contexts, same trajectory. People who marinate in conspiracy theories until reality blurs and fantasy becomes truth worth fighting for. What happens to them now? Maximum security? Psychiatric evaluation. They'll never get near the royal family again. Phillips closed the folder. But this raises bigger questions. Our security failed today. Multiple points of failure. We got lucky that you were paying attention. It wasn't luck, Daniel said. It was training. Training helps. But instinct matters too. You had a choice in that courtyard tackle, the suspect or shield the prince. You chose to shield. That's not something we can train. That's character. The praise sat uncomfortably on Daniel's shoulders. He'd done what anyone should do. What any decent person would do. Protect a child from danger, but not everyone did. Not everyone could. The door opened. A senior aide stepped in, immaculate in formal attire. Commander. Officer Hayes. Their Majesties request your presence in the blue drawing room. Daniel's heart skipped. The king and queen wanted to see him personally. This wasn't standard protocol. This was something else entirely. He followed Phillips through winding corridors. Past portraits of monarchs stretching back centuries. Guards they passed nodded with new respect. Word had spread fast. The blue drawing room doors opened. And there, standing beside tall windows overlooking the gardens where it had all happened, stood the royal family. The king stood when Daniel entered. Formal protocol said Daniel should bow, speak only when spoken to, maintain professional distance, but the king crossed the room and extended his hand instead. Officer Hayes. Thank you. The handshake was firm, genuine, the grip of a father. Not a monarch, Your Majesty, Daniel managed. His throat felt tight. The queen stood nearby, her composure perfect, despite red-rimmed eyes that told the real story. Behind her on a sofa sat George, Charlotte, and Louis. 3 children in expensive clothes who looked very small in the grand room. What you did today, the king continued, was extraordinary. You placed yourself in harm's way without hesitation. You protected our son, our children. There are no words adequate to express our gratitude. I was doing my duty, sir. You went beyond duty. Commander Phillips showed me the footage. The moment in the courtyard you had a clear shot at tackling the suspect. Instead, you covered George with your own body. That's not protocol. That's sacrifice. Daniel glanced at Prince George. The boy was watching him with those same wide eyes from the courtyard. Still scared, still processing. And in the gallery, the queen added, her voice controlled but emotional. You talked down a dangerous man without violence. You kept our children safe and unharmed. That takes remarkable courage and restraint. They're just children, Daniel said quietly. They deserved to be protected. Charlotte suddenly stood up from the sofa. She walked across the room, stopping in front of Daniel. For a moment, she just looked up at him. Then she wrapped her small arms around his leg and held on tight. Daniel froze. Protocol shattered. This wasn't supposed to happen. But the queen nodded, eyes glistening, giving permission. He knelt down to Charlotte's level. Thank you, she whispered. You saved us. You were very brave, Daniel told her. You and Louis both. I was scared. Being scared is okay. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're scared. Something flickered in the man's eyes. Doubt, shame, human emotion breaking through whatever. Delusion had brought him here. Charlotte chose that moment to speak. "Please," she whispered. "Please, I want my mummy." Her voice was so small, so broken. The sound of a child who didn't understand why a stranger was scaring her, why her hand hurt from being gripped too tight, why the nice guard who usually smiled at her was so far away. The man's hand trembled. Daniel saw his opening. "You're not a monster," he said softly. "I can see that. Whatever brought you here, whatever you believe, it's not worth this. It's not worth becoming the villain in their story. Let them go, please. Just let them go, and we'll talk. I promise you, we'll talk." The silence stretched. Seconds felt like hours. Then the man's shoulders sagged. "I didn't want to scare them. I needed someone to listen." "I'm listening," Daniel said. "Right now, I'm listening." The hand came out of the pocket, empty, no weapon. It had been a bluff. The man released Charlotte's hand. "Go," he told the children quietly. "Go to the guard." Charlotte didn't hesitate. She grabbed Louis and ran, their small feet pattering against marble. Daniel knelt and caught them both, pulling them behind him in one smooth motion. They pressed against his back, sobbing. The man slid down the wall until he sat on the floor, defeated, broken. Whatever fire had driven him here had burned out completely. Guards rushed in from both ends of the hall. They surrounded the man, pulled him to his feet, restrained him with professional efficiency. But he didn't resist. He was done. Daniel stayed kneeling, letting Charlotte and Louis hold on to him for as long as they needed. His hands shook now that it was over. The adrenaline crash hit like a wave, but the children were safe. That was all that mattered. What Daniel didn't know yet was that this was only the beginning of the questions that needed answering. Charlotte nodded solemnly, like he'd just shared the most important secret in the world. Louis slipped off the sofa and joined his sister. He didn't say anything, just leaned against Daniel's shoulder. 3 years old and already carrying memories he shouldn't have to carry. George remained on the sofa, watching. The king noticed. "George," he said gently, "is there something you want to say?" The 8-year-old prince stood, walked over. His face was serious, older than his years. "You stopped him," George said. "The man who was shouting. You stopped him from getting to me." "I did." "Why didn't you just run? Or hide? You could have gotten hurt." Daniel considered the question carefully. This was a prince, yes, but more importantly, this was a child trying to understand why adults do what they do. "Because that's what protection means," Daniel said. "It means standing between danger and the people who need to be kept safe. Even if it's scary. Even if it's risky. That's the job. That's the promise I made." George studied him for a long moment. Then he extended his hand, copying his father's gesture from minutes before. "Thank you, Officer Hayes. I won't forget what you did." They shook hands. Formal, proper. A young prince learning how to express gratitude in the way he'd been taught. But then George's composure cracked. He stepped forward and hugged Daniel the way 8-year-olds hug, fierce and honest and grateful. Daniel returned the embrace, making eye contact with the king and queen over George's shoulder. The queen had tears streaming down her face now, all composure abandoned. The king's jaw was clenched, fighting his own emotions. "Officer Hayes," the king said when the children finally stepped back, "we would like to formally recognize your service. You'll be receiving a commendation. And if you're willing, we'd like you to join the personal protection detail. The children trust you. We trust you. It was an enormous honor. The kind of career advancement that guards worked decades to achieve." But Daniel saw the real reason in their eyes. These parents had nearly lost their children today. They wanted someone nearby who'd proven he'd die before letting harm come to them. "I'd be honored, Your Majesty." The queen crossed the room and did something entirely unprecedented. She hugged him. Just a brief embrace, but enough to convey what words couldn't. "You gave me my children back," she whispered. "Thank you." Commander Phillips cleared his throat from the doorway. "Your Majesties, I apologize for the interruption. We have developments in the investigation. The mood shifted immediately. The king's expression hardened. What developments? We've identified the palace contact who fed information to the suspects. And Soot's worse than we thought. The children were quickly ushered from the room by nannies. Charlotte looked back once at Daniel, who gave her a reassuring nod. When the doors closed, Phillips continued. The leak came from someone with high-level security clearance. Someone who had access to schedules, patrol routes, and camera blind spots. They've been communicating with extremist groups online for months. Who? The king demanded. Phillips glanced at Daniel. Someone Officer Hayes worked with directly. Someone he trusted. Daniel's blood ran cold. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Because suddenly, he knew exactly who Phillips meant. Officer Marcus Chen had been Daniel's partner for 3 years. They'd walked hundreds of patrol routes together, shared coffee during night shifts, talked about families and dreams and the weight of protecting people who would never know their names. Daniel had trusted him completely, and Marcus had betrayed everything. The communications go back 6 months, Phillips explained, displaying evidence on a tablet. It started innocuously forum discussions about royal family policies. Then it escalated. Private messages with conspiracy theorists. Eventually, direct contact with Andrew Pearson. The king's face was stone. He gave them everything they needed. Yes, sir. Shift schedules. Camera coverage gaps. The timing of Prince George's outdoor activities. Even the detail about the maintenance uniform Pearson's access was revoked. But Chen told him the new badge design so they could create a convincing fake. Where is he now? Detained. Awaiting formal charges. He's claiming he didn't think anyone would actually go through with it. Said he thought they were just talking, venting frustrations, building hypothetical scenarios. Hypothetical, the Queen repeated, her voice ice. My children were taken hostage based on his hypothetical information? Chen maintains he tried to back out 2 weeks ago. Cut off communication. But by then, Webb and Pearson had everything they needed. They just waited for the right moment. Daniel's mind reeled. Had there been signs? Moments he'd missed? Marcus had seemed distracted lately, more withdrawn. But Daniel had attributed it to stress, maybe personal problems. How did we catch him? Daniel asked. His own conscience, ironically, Phillips said. When the alarms went off today, he sent a text to Pearson telling him to abort, to surrender peacefully. That's what flagged our system's outgoing communication to a known suspect during an active incident. Digital forensics traced everything from there. The king turned to Daniel. You worked with him closely. Did you suspect anything? No, sir. If I had, I would have reported it immediately. The admission tasted like ash. I trusted him. I should have seen something. This isn't your failure, Officer Hayes, the Queen said firmly. You're not responsible for someone else's choices. You're responsible for what you did today, which was save our children, while your partner was helping their attackers. The contrast was stark and painful. 2 officers. 2 choices. 2 completely different outcomes. What happens to him? Daniel asked. Prison. A long time in prison, the king said. Conspiracy to endanger royal lives, treason, betrayal of official duty. The prosecutors are building a case that will ensure he never sees daylight as a free man again, Phillips added, and we're conducting a full security review. New protocols. Enhanced screening. This can never happen again. But they all knew it could. Because the real weapon wasn't the fake badge or the coordinated attack plan. It was the human element. The weak link in any security system, the person who decides to betray trust. Chen is requesting to speak with you, Phillips told Daniel. He's being held in the secure wing. You're under no obligation to see him. Daniel thought about it. Part of him wanted answers. Wanted to understand how someone he'd trusted could do something so unthinkable. But another part of him wanted nothing to do with the man who'd helped put children in danger. I'll see him, Daniel said finally. Once, then never again. The king nodded. That's your choice to make. Officer Hazur dismissed for today. Take tomorrow off as well. You've earned it. And when you return, report to the Personal Protection Office. Your new assignment begins immediately. Daniel left the blue drawing room feeling like he was walking through a dream. The day had started normally. Now, 3 children were traumatized. 2 men were in custody. A trusted colleague was facing treason charges, and Daniel's entire career had changed direction. He found Marcus Chen in an interview room 2 hours later. His former partner looked haggard, defeated. When Daniel entered, Marcus couldn't meet his eyes. "Why?" Daniel asked simply. "I don't know," Marcus's voice cracked. It started small. Just conversations online. People who seemed to understand how difficult this job is, how thankless. They listened when I complained about protocols or long hours. Made me feel valued. "So you gave them classified information." I didn't think Marcus stopped himself. That's not true. I knew. Somewhere I knew. But I told myself it was harmless. Just talking. Just venting. By the time I realized what I'd done, it was too late. They had everything. Those children could have died today. I know. Tears streamed down Marcus's face. I know. I tried to stop it. I swear, I tried. But I'd already lit the fuse. All I could do was watch it burn. Yes. Daniel stood. "We're done. Don't contact me. Don't write. When you get out, if you ever get out, stay away from me and stay away from that family. Daniel, please, you don't get to use my name. You've lost that right." He left without looking back. Outside, the sun was setting over the palace grounds. The same grounds where, just hours ago, he'd stepped between a child and danger. The same grounds where he'd made the choice that defined who he was. Protection wasn't just a job. It was a promise. A promise that some people kept and others broke. Daniel had kept his. 3 weeks later, Prince George attended his first public event since the incident. Daniel stood nearby in his new role as personal protection officer. When photographers captured images of the young prince waving to crowds, they also captured something else in the background. A guard whose eyes never stopped moving, whose stance suggested absolute readiness, whose entire purpose was to ensure that one moment of danger never happened again. That night, Daniel received a handwritten note from Princess Charlotte. The handwriting was wobbly, the spelling imperfect, but the message clear. "Thank you for being brave. You're my favorite guard. Love, Charlotte." He kept it in his pocket every shift after that. A reminder of why he did what he did. Why the promise mattered. Why standing between danger and innocence was always worth it. Because in the end, protection wasn't about glory or recognition or career advancement. It was about a child's smile, a parent's gratitude, the knowledge that when the worst moment came, you didn't run. You stood your ground. You kept the promise. And you made sure the people who trusted you made it home safe.